And the practice of Tarā is an extremely important practice. And in general, a Dharma practice is very important, but in particular, the practice of Tarā is very significant when it comes to pacifying all the misfortunes our world is experiencing right now, all the disease and the violence, the wars in the world, and so on. During those times, Tarā practice is extremely important. And so that's mainly because all of us want one thing: we want to be happy. And to be happy, we need to cultivate virtue. That is why we always must rely on the blessings of the three jewels. That is why we engage in practice. And so Tarā is the embodiment of all the deities' enlightened activities. But during the practice, it's important to cultivate great faith and devotion to Tarā, and to visualize yourself as Tarā, and to recite Tara's mantra, and most importantly, to meditate on Tara's love. When you engage in practice, that's most important, that you practice this with a real and dedicated mind, a mind that is really focused on this. And then this practice has the power to pacify negative circumstances and obstacles, and also it will bring uninterrupted blessings into your mind stream, and in this way your merit will always increase, and that will contribute to pacifying the famine and the disease and the wars in this world, because all of these arise from non-virtuous causes, and engaging in this practice benefits in overcoming these. So therefore, this practice is extremely important. So we should really consider this group practice together as a very significant opportunity for us to practice together and to pray. It is a very important time. Sometimes we may think that I'm actually doing a lot of Dharma practice. I'm quite good practitioner, but still I'm having all these problems all the time. I'm having all these obstacles all the time. Why? So if you think about karma carefully, the actions that you engage in, of course, you have accumulated a lot of karma in previous lives, but even in this life, you have accumulated so much karma already. So that is actually the purpose of us coming together for these 2 days and practicing Tarā. And so for these 2 days of practice, we may do our best and practice well. But then after we leave the practice, again, all kinds of negative thoughts arise in our mind. All kinds of emotions arise in our mind again. And this is how we accumulate karma with body, speech, and mind all the time. So when we compare the time we spend on each, the time we spend practicing the Dharma is quite short compared to the time we spend developing negative thoughts and non-virtue. And of course, it doesn't mean to just these very severe actions, even if you don't go out killing others and really hurting them. There still are these negative thoughts in the mind all the time, like attachment and competitiveness and jealousy and anger and so on, and we continuously accumulate them in our mind. So we are actually constantly accumulating non-virtue all the time, and this is why the cause of suffering is always with us. So a result of suffering can always happen, it can always ripen. And so that is why it is so important to always practice, not just for those 2 days, but always practice as much as you can with body, speech, and mind. That's why Rinpoche always says, recite Tarā, practice Tarā. And there's a reason for saying that. It is because all of the difficulties or problems or obstacles, they all come from these negative karmas, from these karmic imprints in our mind. And by practicing Tarā, we remove them. So when ideally you practice Tarā having a complete confidence of I am really Tarā, or at least cultivate devotion and a pure perception toward Tarā and compassion for sentient beings. And practice as well as you can. If you do that, then you will be able to bring an end to accumulating negative karma. And also you may purify karma that has been created in the past before. And then when the causes of suffering become purified, then naturally all problems and obstacles will also become purified. So that's why it's very important to engage in practice continuously on an ongoing basis. Talk about the 7 verses of supplication to Tarā. And so let me just open this. So this prayer, the 7 verses of refuge to Tarā, it contains a lot of blessings, and it is a very important teaching. So within this prayer actually is contained a very important teaching. And of course, I don't know how to explain that so well, but I will do my best to explain it to you, so that later you can also look further into it. So by me sharing a little bit about it, maybe it kind of catches your interest and you will practice it further and look into it further. So that's why I wanted to share that with you. So first of all, who wrote these 7 verses? So a protection to Tarā. It was written by Lord Jigten Sumgon when he was practicing in retreat in the Echung Cave. And during his practice, he beheld Tarā directly. And when he saw Tarā directly, he supplicated her. And this is the supplication prayer that was born there. And this prayer is directly related to the instructions of Mahamudra. So generally speaking, all the Dharma belongs to the conventional or the relative and the ultimate truth, and also the 7 verses. But of those 2 truths, they mainly speak to the ultimate truth, because it is a supplication that arose from Jigten Sumgon in a moment when he realized the nature of his mind, when he dwelt within Mahamudra. This supplication then emerged from him. And so therefore, this supplication prayer is very connected to the practice of the mind. So the text begins with, Divine Mother Tarā, you abide in the uncreated ultimate sphere, bestower of bliss on all sentient beings. Please deliver me from every peril. First until here, yeah. So first it's according to the Tibetan, so it begins with Ma, which is the mother. So that's the first word in Tibetan. And Ma, or a mother, this word Ma represents the love for all sentient beings. For example, the love that a mother has for her only child is immeasurable. So it is this immeasurable love. Ma, or mother, is a symbol, a sign of it is immeasurable love for all beings. And so Ma, or mother, in one explanation, it's that it means she is the one that takes on physical form to act for the welfare of others. And also the mother, with her kindness, gives us form. So the mother is extremely kind and possesses many qualities. That is one way of seeing Ma. on the relative level, ultimately, Ma or mother also represents the source of everything that arises and of all good qualities. This uncreated, so a mother of the uncreated ultimate sphere. So this uncreated or unborn, this is from the ultimate perspective now, from the perspective of having realized the ultimate truth. Before one realizes the ultimate truth, for all sentient beings, there is birth, there is living, and there is death. But then once one realizes the ultimate truth, one goes beyond that. There is no more birth, abiding, and cessation. And that space beyond is called the ultimate sphere here, or the Dharma Dhatu. So it's the unborn Dharma Dhatu, or here the uncreated ultimate sphere. And so this is where Tarā abides. So in the mother, in the ultimate sphere. And who abides there? It is the mother Jigten Sumgon, so the goddess, the mother goddess Tarā dwells in the Dharma Dhatu sphere. So the way I personally understand that, and I think we should think about that when we read that, is that this unborn ultimate sphere, or this unborn Dharma Dhatu, is really connected to our own mind. It's really connected to the nature of our own mind. Our mind is actually unborn, but we don't realize that. And because we don't realize that, we follow our various confused perceptions. And that is why we always encounter a lot of difficulties and suffering and fear and more confused perceptions. And all of these are linked to self-grasping. So what happens when we supplicate to Tarā? In the next line it says then, bestower of bliss on all sentient beings. She grants happiness to all sentient beings. So when you practice Tarā with great devotion and inspiration, you will at least gain some understanding of the nature of mind. And that understanding will at least somewhat diminish your fears and delusions and attachments and thoughts of hatred, and bring you peace and happiness. So this is what happens when you see the nature of your mind. And this is how I reflect on these words. So again, where do we find this ultimate sphere, the Dharma Dhatu? It's actually our own mind. And what is Tarā actually? She's actually the space-like nature of our own mind. She's our own wisdom and compassion. So she's really our knowing of our own mind. So therefore, this is how she bestows you peace and happiness by practicing her. And this is how your fears and negative thoughts of attachment, hatred, ignorance, hope, expectations, and so forth all diminish. And this is how she bestows happiness on you. It's because by practicing her, an understanding of the nature of mind arises. So when you practice Tarā, you visualize the deity, your body in the form of the deity, you recite Tara's mantra, and with your mind, you focus single-pointedly, you practice samadhi. And as a result of that, your body merges with the enlightened body of Tarā, and your speech merges with Tara's speech, and your mind of faith and devotion and pure perception merges with the immeasurable love of Tara's mind. And as a result, your self-grasping diminishes. So I believe that this is how we should try to think about it when we practice this. And so then the way, this is how we can also think about it. So we are all ordinary beings, beginning practitioners. And so, of course, while this here speaking from the perspective of the ultimate truth, the vast nature, we as ordinary people do not understand all of that so much. So we don't understand the true nature of Mahamudra and emptiness, and the Dharma Dhatu, and so on. So the way we can understand this Dharma Dhatu, or ultimate sphere, from our perspective, the relative perspective, is we can see it as Tara's Pure Land, as this field which is Tara's Pure Land. And so this is how we should see it, because as ordinary people, what makes us ordinary is that we want to be free from suffering. We want to be happy. We have a grasping at a self. We have many hopes and many fears. We always want to receive some blessings, and we always hope that the deity or someone will help us with the enlightened activity to accomplish something. So we always have these hopes and wishes in our mind. So we are ordinary people. And as ordinary people, it's good to see this Dharma Dhatu as the Pure Land of Tarā, who abides there as the manifestation, the embodiment of all the Buddha's enlightened activities. And then, bringing this to mind, I supplicate her with great devotion. For example, I supplicate her thinking, may I become free of suffering and receive her blessings. If you supplicate her and practice her with great devotion, that is the best. And that's essential also, because the Buddha's blessings, the compassionate blessings, are always present. They're always there for us. They always look upon us with great love. But we can only receive their blessings if we do our part, if we cultivate devotion, because it's all interdependent. It's not enough for the Buddhas who want us to give their blessings. We have to do our part by supplicating with great devotion, and then we can receive their blessings naturally. So we need to supplicate on our part. And then so on the ultimate level, Antara is the form of emptiness and compassion. In the 37 Bodhisattva practices, in the beginning, it says that they have realized that all phenomena neither come nor go. So all phenomena do not come and do not go. Ultimately, there is no coming and no going. And the deity always abides in the Dharma Dhatu sphere without ever going anywhere. But then from the relative perspective, there is coming and going, and therefore deity is always there to benefit those beings on the relative level with great love. And because of that, because the deity is always there, she can always appear to us. We can always receive her blessings. And we can practice her to pacify disease and obstacles and many negative circumstances if we pray to her. So there's this supplication to Tarā, a different supplication to Tarā, that says that she bestows whatever you wish, she can bestow that wish. So for example, if you want to have a son, she will give you a son. If you want to have a daughter, she will give you a daughter. If you want to be rich, she will bring you riches. You can receive everything from Tarā, but also on your part, it's important to cultivate a strong faith, a belief, and devotion to Tarā. If you have that, and she does have the ability to bestow blessings and accomplishments. So if you supplicate to Tarā with great devotion, all of your wishes can be fulfilled. But it's important to have faith, to believe, and to have devotion in her. And we always speak about, I want to be protected in this life, in future lives, and in the bardo. We always speak about protection in these three states. With Tara's blessings, we can find all of that, the happiness in this life temporarily, and the freedom from all fear and suffering in future lives. If we practice well in this life, one may well attain enlightenment. If one practices Tarā in this life, if you practice Tarā in this life, you will receive her temporary and ultimate blessings. Ultimately, you become liberated from samsara. You attain enlightenment. So then, is there any benefit in this life already if I practice in this life? There is, because she is the protectress of all fears in this life. There are so many real, true stories of practitioners who have practiced Tarā and have, through their practice, overcome many obstacles, many hardships in their lives. For example, there is the story about Lord Atisha of how he traveled on a boat in the ocean, and then he ran into a storm and the boat was sinking in the ocean, and he supplicated to Tarā and was freed and was even able to steer the boat in his desired direction. And that's just one story. There are so many stories of many lamas who have practiced Tarā and who have gained benefits in this very lifetime, who have been able to accomplish many things in this lifetime. For example, the greatest benefit to gain is that our realization and experience of the path, on the path, increases, and that we reach the furthest limits of our practice. But even if we just think about it in a much smaller sense, if we just want to accomplish something, or if we want to be free from some problem, Tarā has the power to grant us that. She has the power to dispel any kind of difficulty, any obstacle, any disease. She can bring success in any activity. There are so many real stories about that. But for that, it's very important to practice Tarā on an ongoing basis. So you can't expect that I'm practicing today, tomorrow I will have all the siddhis. That is not going to happen. You have to practice on an ongoing basis. So first, unaware that the mind itself is Dharmakaya. So first of all, when we read this verse, just reading it like that may seem not so difficult, may seem easy. We can easily understand what that means. But if you really think about it, it's actually very profound. So the mind itself is Dharmakaya. We always say this quote, all beings are actually Buddhas. They are only obscured by adventitious or temporary stains. So the next line here is, so that's really the meaning of this here. The mind itself is Dharmakaya. So I am really Dharmakaya, but I haven't realized that. Therefore, I'm wandering in samsara. It's very important to realize that. If you understand that I, myself, you are Dharmakaya, you are liberated from samsara. So here we supplicate to Tarā, I am ignorant, not seeing that I actually am the Dharmakaya. Please give me the wisdom to realize that I am the Dharmakaya. So that is how we supplicate the deity. And so how are we the Dharmakaya? It is that the nature of the mind is an innate clarity, a clear innate mind, a natural state, and that is the Dharmakaya, that is you. And this Dharmakaya nature has always been pure. It's a completely pure, clear nature. In a different song, in the Vajra songs, it is said that although Buddhas and sentient beings may seem separate, they are not separate in the mind. The mind is Buddha, the mind is a sentient being. It's one and the same mind. When you realize that mind is my mind, the Dharmakaya, and you're liberated from samsara. But because we have not realized that our mind is actually Buddha, we are wandering in samsara. In the beginning of the jewel ornament of liberation, it says, what is the basis of samsara and nirvana? It says the basis of both is emptiness, meaning that samsara is emptiness, nirvana is emptiness. But we haven't realized that. And that is why we develop confused perceptions, which is what we call wandering in samsara. And then from these confused perceptions, the characteristics of delusion arises, which is suffering. Suffering arises. Nirvana is when you realize the nature of that confusion. And when you realize it, then the root of all suffering will disappear. So our own mind is actually the Buddha, but we have not recognized that. And that's the only, that's all that has happened, meaning that it's not that anything was lost or destroyed or made impure. It's still there, it's still pure, it's always there, it's just we don't see it. In a praise called the Dharma praise, it says that, just like the essence of water stays within the core of the earth, the mind, the essence of mind stays pure within the core of the mind. So, of course, earth, for example, earth is made out of many different particles, but the essence of water is there unmixed with the earth. It's undefiled. It stays pure as it always is. And so similarly, although there are many afflicted thoughts in our mind, they only obscure our primordial awareness, our wisdom. But those afflictive emotions have not destroyed our primordial awareness, nor have they polluted our primordial awareness. They just obscure it like a cloud in the sky. But the primordial awareness itself is always as it is, unchanging and pure. It is just that we don't see it because we are controlled by afflictive emotions. And how does that happen? It's because of those 6 sense consciousnesses. We see different things with our eyes, we hear different things with our ears, and whatever we perceive, there is a subject-object perception where we believe in the dualistic existence between ourselves and what we see or hear, what we perceive. And because of this separate perception, we accumulate karma. And even though we accumulate karma, our consciousness itself, the basis, remains as it is. But on top of that, we put many layers of habitual imprints, and they have become very thick layers. And because these layers are so thick, we cannot see through them to the nature of our mind, our true nature. It is just like the sun is obscured by many thick and dark clouds, so you can't see it at all. But the sun is still there. It just happens that sometimes it's covered up by the clouds. But when they disappear, the sun is there as it has always been. And so similarly, the nature of mind, our pure nature, is always there. But temporarily it is obscured by these layers of afflicted karmic imprints. So just like the clouds in the sky, we cannot see our nature. And so if you understand that, if you see that, if you know that is there within you, that will give you some relief, some happiness, some joy. But if you don't know that, then this mind, this obscured mind, will cause you to wander in samsara continuously, because you will continue to follow your habitual tendencies and accumulate karma. And as a result, you will continue to perceive all these dualistic perceptions that you will again follow. Now, there is this prayer by Jamgon Kongtrul Rinpoche, where he says that I have thoughts are the Dharmakaya, but I do not realize this. So actually thoughts are the Dharmakaya, and so we can recognize that when we meditate and look at the nature of the mind. So what happens when you look at the nature of your mind? So generally we have all kinds of different feelings. We feel good, we feel bad, we have all kinds of feelings. But all of these feelings, when you really look at them, do they really exist? Are they really there? Or not. And when you really look at them, you will see that there is actually nothing really there. So when you see that nothing is actually there, then no fixation to something being there will arise. So the realization is found within the lack of finding something. So there is no emotion to be found. So for example, sometimes it happens that we get angry. And normally when we get angry, then we identify with that somehow. We think that I am angry and this is anger. So there is anger. We think that there actually is something there. And there's a real feeling of that. We feel that. But then when you actually look at it, when you really look at the essence, where really is that anger? You don't see it anywhere. There is no anger. You will not find anything at all. And by not finding anything at all, this is where the obscuration goes away in a moment. So it is that obscuration that thinks that there is something there. But by you not finding anything, you actually penetrate the obscuration. And that goes for any of the other afflictive emotions and various dualistic perceptions and thoughts that may arise. So when you really meditate and look at them, you will see that they do not really exist. There's nothing actually there. And so this is your kind of point of reference of when you practice. This is what you hold on to when you, in a way that when you practice, like based on this you practice. So Jamgon Kongtrul had said that thoughts are the Dharmakaya, but I do not realize this. So we have different thoughts. We label them good thoughts and bad thoughts. When we have a good thought, we think that this was a good thought now. Or we have a bad thought, we feel miserable about it, and we think that this was such a terrible thought, and it makes us feel very upset. Actually, these are just labels. These are just mental fabrications. In the nature of your mind, there is no good and no bad thought that exists, just like the anger does not exist. You won't find a certain kind of thought. It doesn't exist. So when you rest in meditation, this is how you see the Buddha within your own mind. So thoughts are the Dharmakaya, but I do not realize this. And then my own mind is the Buddha, but I haven't realized this. So this is this quote by Jamgon Kongtrul. And so the thoughts being the Dharmakaya now does not mean anger is the Dharmakaya. That would be a misunderstanding. How are thoughts the Dharmakaya then? It is that when you look at the thought and you see that it's not actually there, so the knower, the one who knows, who is aware of that there is nothing really there, that knowing, that is the Dharmakaya, the knowing of the thought. So that's the meaning of thought, is the Dharmakaya. So when you understand these words, then you will no longer follow these afflicted thoughts arising in your mind. In the Tarā text, it says the mind falls under the sway of delusion. So we always follow our delusions. So we call it afflictive emotions. We call it delusions. It's all the same. It's the conceptual mind, the discursive thinking, and that discursive thinking manifests in many different afflicted ways. It is selfish. It perceives self and other. It manifests as attachment, as hatred, as hope, as fear, as depression, as joy, and so forth, in many different ways. But all of that is afflicted. All the different fixations in the mind are afflicted thoughts. They're discursive thoughts. So knowing that and paying attention to that, you will no longer follow all of these thoughts. But normally, that is why we wander in samsara. It's because we constantly get swept away by these 6 sense perceptions. We follow all of these sense perceptions, and we are constantly overcome by many fears and hopes and desires based on all these sense perceptions. And if that's what we do, then we will have to experience the suffering of the 3 lower realms, because we accumulate karma. We accumulate, we form thicker layers of these habitual imprints in our mind. And these imprints cause us to take birth in the lower realms. And so this is why we practice Tarā. We practice Tarā. I practice Tarā because I want to develop wisdom. I want to develop compassion. I want to see that my mind is the Buddha. I want to know that my thoughts are the Dharma Kaya. And so also in this prayer, Echung Cave, it says that the innate mind itself, I have not recognized my own innate nature. So it's actually always there, but we don't recognize it. But if you rest in the natural state of the mind, you may see it, and this is the liberation from suffering. So samsara is the perpetuation of those propensities, those karmic tendencies. These are the seeds in our mind that cause the crops of samsara to grow, manifesting as many forms of happiness and suffering within samsara. So what can we do about it? What can we do about these karmic tendencies, these habitual tendencies? Ideally, you see the nature of your mind. You meditate and see your true nature. Or you practice a deity. You visualize the form of Tarā. You visualize yourself as inseparable from Tarā. Or you just settle resting in the nature of the mind without distraction and without becoming controlled by any afflicted thought. You just meditate in a completely pure state. And that is the method, the way to become liberated from samsara. So now, knowing that, you then will feel compassion for all those samsaric sentient beings who do not know that. And therefore, to separate them from suffering, you supplicate to Tarā. I have recognized that now, and therefore now I supplicate Tarā with great devotion and with a practice with great joy and delight. And that's actually a crucial point. We have our practice, and we practice the Dharma. We have to find some joy in doing it. We have to basically enjoy the practice. There are some people who really love the practice. They love to come to the Mani retreats and do the various retreats and to practice. They love it because it makes them feel good. It makes them feel happy. And that's a sign that they have some understanding of the Dharma. They like to practice the Dharma. It makes them feel happy. And that is why they always want to practice the Dharma and can practice. And if you always practice the Dharma, then the blessings of the deity will enter your mind. And what happens then? then the self-grasping diminishes. And when self-grasping diminishes, you experience joy. So there are some people who really love to practice the Dharma, and that's what we call a virtuous habitual tendency, or in plain words, a habit. It's a virtuous habit. So we have a habit of practicing the Yidam deity, for example, like Tarā. If you always think of Tarā, you always practice Tarā, you develop a virtuous habit, a habitual tendency. And then this habit, this virtuous habit, again reinforces itself, because you will again and again want to practice Tarā. So it becomes stronger and stronger. So that's a virtuous habitual tendency or habit. But we also have non-virtuous habits. Some people who just always hurt others, who always harm others. For example, when they talk to someone, they're really rude when they speak to someone, or whatever they do, somehow they manage to hurt someone. Mainly for the sake of getting something, gaining something themselves. So at the cost of other people's happiness, they are out for their own gain. That's a habit too, and they just do it naturally. It comes very natural to them. For example, some wild animals like tigers or leopards, they naturally go after other animals to eat them. That's a habit. They just do it naturally. They don't think about it. Then there are some people who are naturally very respectful toward others. They're very kind and very loving. When they speak to others, they say things that make other people happy and that actually helps them just naturally. It's just their nature. And so it's really a habit. It's because in a previous life, they have already formed that habit of practicing the Dharma. So now in this life, it becomes just second nature. It just comes on its own. So there's different people. Some always harm others. They can't help it, even if they have no specific intention. They just naturally, whatever they say, for example, somehow is negative. For example, they just can't help but speak negatively about others, or speak out of jealousy or competitiveness, or they speak half-truths, like they are deceiving others when they speak. And even if they don't say anything, even if they don't want to say anything, it's still inside them. They're thinking it. It's just when they say it, they're manifesting their inner thought. That's a habit. And so when we practice the deity, it is also a habit. And the habit, whatever becomes a habit, becomes something that we enjoy doing. So we practice it with joy. When the habit becomes stronger, as the habit becomes stronger, the joy of doing it also increases, because it comes easy, it comes natural. Just naturally, you want to be kind to others. It makes you happy. And so this is what happens when we form a habit. When we form a virtuous habit, then our fixation to samsara will naturally get lesser and lesser. And so all habits are the same, whether they're virtuous or non-virtuous. So now in this verse that we just mentioned before, my own mind is the Buddha, but I never realize it. The thoughts are the Dharmakaya, but I do not realize this. That is also something we should understand as a habit. So no, I don't realize it. Why? Because I don't have that habit. I don't realize it because the negative habit toward negative thoughts is much stronger. That's why I don't realize it. It is said that all the relative phenomena of samsara arise from karma. And how do we accumulate karma? we accumulate karma with the mind. And what is it that we really accumulate? When we accumulate karma, what we really accumulate is habits, habitual patterns. So there is a stream continuum of habit, of habitual pattern that we create and reinforce with our actions. So, for example, whatever you have done a lot in a previous life, you will want to do that same thing again in future lives, whether it is virtues or non-virtues. For example, if you have stayed in the lower realms for a long time and eventually become liberated and take birth as a human again, there still will be what is called the result corresponding to the cause, which is basically just a continuum of that habit that comes into effect. So there is, because of that habit that's still there, there's a similar experience. So there is an experience that is similar to whatever that habit is. And an action, whatever you do, will also be similar with that habit. So, for example, if that was a negative habit, you will want to do that negative thing again and again. You again will do it. And you will want to do it. You feel like doing it. That's the stream continuum of karmic tendency that we take with us. That is why it's so important to create virtuous habits on an ongoing basis, because these become the seeds and the imprints that form this stream that we will bring with us. And if we do not bring an end to the stream of karmic tendency, we will not be able to bring an end to the continuum of samsara, because all it really is a continuum of habitual tendency. For example, if you have a fire in the stove, you can't stop the smoke. There will be smoke. So just like that, for as long as there is non-virtue, there will always be suffering. There will always be a continuum of suffering. There will be a natural tendency, a wish, you want to do negative things. It's a habit. So therefore, it's important for us to reverse this habit and form virtues, good habits, but on an ongoing basis. That's very important. So for today, I stop the teachings here.
Janjo simjo rinpoche maje panam cheje je panyam par me bai kone kondam pe wayo